Welcome to another edition of Yoga Therapist. Where am I now? And we are welcoming Christine Tran into what do we call this? The interview room. And she's excited to share a lot about how her journey, as a yoga teacher, moved into yoga therapy, and then what she was doing as a yoga therapist, and then her future. And so, Christine, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So you were living in the greater Washington, D.C. area as a yoga instructor. I guess you were living in Washington, D.C. more or less. And then what led you to yoga therapy?
That's, it's a kind of a natural progression for me. When I started practicing yoga and then eventually became a yoga teacher, I've always been drawn to more the therapeutic side of yoga. So it was more, my first exposure was restorative yoga. And I did a training in restorative yoga, and it was just so powerful and life-changing for me to have that final stillness and being able to let myself just relax and restore it. Not used to that back then when I was living a very stressful, fast-paced lifestyle.
So that was let me ask you this. So you were a yoga teacher and then you studied restorative yoga?
Yes. Yeah.
And that gave you, well, tell me how it was life-changing.
It was just in the training, the experience of surrendering. I finally understood what surrendering felt like, and embodying that acceptance of just letting myself be without doing. That's what restorative is very passive, and for my body, but also just for my mind. To actually it's almost like a meditation for me. And I never really had that experience. And it was held in such a beautiful way by the teachers. And just from that experience, seeing how that can, as a teacher, you can hold a sacred space like that for someone to find refuge. And I think I was in the point in my life where I didn't quite know what I was looking for. But it was just, someone told me, I took a restorative class, and that teacher, I asked her, where did you get your training? And then she told me. I was like, okay. I looked it up, and it was in New York, and I was like, I'm just going to do it. Something's calling me to it. That's usually how I, yeah, every time I do a training or something new or traveling, something sparks, and then I just follow that. And so that's how I got, more into yoga therapy, and did some research, and then found your school. And it was another calling. It was just I don't know why I feel like this, I need to invest my time in yoga therapy, but I'm going to do it. And yeah, it just kind of fell into place.
So you have the profound, I guess what I'm going to say is you experienced kind of a stillness and then some sort of deep healing, probably.
Yes.
Is that right?
And it was the start of my healing journey, I would say, or, I was aware finally that I'm going through a big healing process. And I finally felt safe to do that. I think that was the biggest piece. And I knew it was, at that point I was like, oh, this is so magical. It's restorative yoga. I didn't know what yoga therapy was at that point until I started practicing more.
So for you, the healing, if I remember, it would have been more some sort of emotional type thing, not physical. You were always physically fine, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I had some aches and pain and joint pain, but it was, I got deeper. I got more, the emotional piece. It's hard for me to open up. And that was the one of the few times that was,
interesting.
That allowed me to. So it's having that container.
Gave you that space. And somebody might have had that experience in therapy or something. Or some special journey, to a huge mountaintop, and they just somehow, right?
Yeah.
So, so I can kind of see then, and then that would lead you to yoga therapy, where you start kind of learning the background of everything. But what was the yoga therapy like for you then?
Well, for me, I think what I learned most was it was it was actually a practice for myself, which is, what we say about yoga training, teacher training is it's really more for your own learning, for your own spiritual and personal growth. And I knew that going into yoga therapy, but I didn't actually know how it would feel to be doing yoga therapy on myself, meaning like, having colleagues to do it with and
Right.
teachers to support, and then before even seeing clients. And so for me, it's always like I go into it like, I know it's for me, but my mindset is still like, oh, I'm doing this so I can help people. I'm doing this so I can, have another like training under my belt, and
Right.
then of course it morphs into, oh wow, that was for my really mostly for my own personal growth, and then I could support
So,
others too.
so even though you can't summarize the whole thing because it's like, study an entire philosophy of yoga and apply it to my life, you know,
Right.
as I told you, like when we do these talks, um, it's just kind of cool to hear anecdotes. So what would be, say, somehow the yoga therapy touched you? Like what would be an example of
Mm,
how that would occur even? Because for a lot of people, they don't know what yoga therapy is still.
yeah, I think the biggest thing that really stands out to me, at first I was thinking about the koshas is when I really understood what, you know, the human experience through like learning about the koshas and how everything's tied in together. So our physical body, energetic, emotional, mental, spiritual. And then
Yeah,
I
those
think
five
that,
are the koshas. Yeah.
yeah, the 5 layers of human experience. And for me, that was kind of my entry point of really understanding like my wellness in like more holistic view. And
Mm.
then that's always been my foundation now for myself and as I'm teaching others. And then I think from that piece, it helped me understand like how to apply yoga to my day-to-day life. So
Mm.
that was for me, like what I learned through the program is yoga therapy is always not just the physical body, and it's not just like sitting there on your mats and then you do all these practices, right? It's like how you really take it off the mat. And I know that's kind of like cliche saying yoga off the mat, but it was through the journey of my yoga therapy training. I think it was the second year, or maybe the third year, when we talked about karma yoga and how that to apply in your workspace. And that was the time in my life where I was still doing international development work in DC, dealing with politics and then trying to live this other lifestyle and practice of yoga, mindfulness. And it was really hard to not separate the two. But then something about our karma yoga like lesson in that weekend, and then also working with clients, it just hit home. And at some point, and I was at work, I was like, I don't feel so attached anymore. Like if something clicked, and
Okay. All right.
it
So
was,
tell me
yeah,
like, so when somebody says, I'm not attached, that's very hard to grasp. So do you
right,
remember what you would have been attached to previously and that you shifted your perspective?
yes.
Can you
I
remember?
I remember exactly that. I was no longer feeling like I was attached to my role at my work, and that it's that work is my life. Like
Mm.
it was a very specific moment when I felt that, and it just hit that, I can still be there and do my duty. And yes, it's part of my work. I have to have all these responsibilities, but I was so caught up in it. And then when I finally removed myself, that's not what I'm living for. I'm just
Mm.
doing service really at the end of the day. And
So,
yeah, it brought me back
so
to my
then,
purpose.
that's what I was going to ask you. So what
Mhm.
was your purpose then?
Well, my purpose has always been serving people. And so in my role, it was, mentoring youth and also adults that come overseas coming to the US from other
Wow.
countries. And
Uh-huh.
so that was the service part that was always drawn to. And I was, and in general, just serving, whether through yoga, through like mentoring. Um, but I lost that side of it because I was so into like, you know, into my role and who I was as like the advisor, as a yoga teacher, um, that I forget that it just comes through the teaching. It comes through like me
Mm,
holding space.
mm,
And so when I finally feel like not attached to who I was or whatever the
mhm,
title I had, it just felt
mhm,
very like, oh, I'm just doing this and I can leave it. Once I leave work, I can
mm.
just leave it. I don't have to
Right.
hold on to anything anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
A way they
yeah.
describe that is going from being at a theater and being on stage versus being then detached where you're still a part of the stage, but you're in the audience now.
Yes,
So
like
your
observing.
ego,
Yeah.
yeah, you're observing, and then your ego is not like talking on the stage and performing, but your ego's over here. So then you can be far more intelligent, maybe, or less dramatic, or you'd actually be
Hmm.
better at serving because you're stepped away a little bit, but you're still doing your role.
Yeah, that's a really good
That's
analogy
yeah,
because
and
it,
and
hmm
then all right. So let me try to show people as you're through your story. So then, how did that affect these five layers of the human experience for you? Because that must have changed. So, like, if we say physical, energetic, emotional, like intellectual, ego, and then spiritual, it must have shifted that for you.
yeah, I shifted it where it's not as separate anymore. Like I saw the connection in everything. So if
Mhm.
I was, not
Wow.
taking care of my body, I know that how it affects with my energy. And it's not like very, you know, it kind of flows, right? It's not like, oh, I feel
Mm.
my body doing this, so this is why my energy. It's not like I'm using my mind to think about it. It was just being able to um,
Mm.
start to build more awareness. And so that really opened up how things around me, the environment that inner environment that I create, and then how that is, yeah, how I'm experiencing it.
Very
Um,
nice.
I don't know that I know
Yeah.
it's maybe
No,
I'm not
that
sure if
that
that's
that makes a lot of
makes
sense.
sense.
I mean, if I was just going to observe you talking, it kind of the way I would patch it in is your nervous system when you were on the stage was using up a ton of energy and like
Mm,
all over the place. And
mm-hmm.
then when you had that deeper understanding, which is kind of a step of wisdom, it comes with experience a little bit, but sometimes you could not learn that until you're 60 at the end
Right.
of your career, whereas you learned it in the beginning when you're very young. So, if you think about your nervous system, watch this. So now suddenly tension leaves your body. Your heart starts beating nicer. You breathe better. You laugh more. You feel happier, but you're still doing the same job and like you're the same
Yeah.
person.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and that
And
would be like a hugely successful yoga therapy session, like or a
right.
series like a series of 10. If we got that with somebody, imagine the change for the rest of their working career. Their stress level
Mm-hmm.
that they were partially responsible for would go from here to, maybe there's some stress that's independent of us, but they would have dropped it so low that it wouldn't feel like much,
Yeah.
you
And
know
what you were saying, like, it's still you learn it, but you can be still learning until you're 60 or however old.
well,
And
that but
but
the breakthrough is
yes.
key.
And once that's I'm at a stage in my life where I'm feeling it that again, where oh, I'm in this crossroad where I remember that feeling of being the observer and then not being the observer anymore. So it's just once it took a long time, and I'm still working on it, right? It's
Yeah,
still a lesson, a life lesson for me.
right.
So it's not like it just went away. So that's an important thing that I think, just because I had a great session or I have a great experience, I still need to keep practicing because life will test you
Yeah,
again. And
sure, sure.
having these tools were really, yeah, has been really helpful.
So I think you're in DC, but you're from originally from the Los Angeles area, and then you moved back. And were you a full-time yoga therapist at that time when you
um
moved home?
it took no, because I had to build new clientele and
Mm,
find new yoga studios that I could collaborate with. So I never really, um, when I first moved back for the first year or so, didn't it slowly, I got like a few clients. Sorry,
right.
as soon as I connected with the community I was living in. But then pandemic hit. So then, you know,
Yeah,
the story.
right.
So,
Yeah.
um,
So what was it like, or what is it like for you when you work with clients? And then maybe we'll do that like 4 out of 5 parts here. So what if we move into that part? Because I know you've been
Mhm.
doing that for a long time now.
Yeah, I mean, it's involved, I do see clients strictly just for yoga therapy, but I also have a background in Reiki energy healing. And so I've been doing a blend of that, depending on the entry point for that person. Some people are really drawn to energy healing, and then I plug in yoga therapy, more like lifestyle coaching, into that piece as like a post care and to continue on the
Mhm.
healing. And then when someone's more drawn into like curious about yoga, I use that and then use Reiki to get them to understand more of their energy. So getting into the
Right.
kosha, one part of the koshas. So I
Excellent.
found the yoga therapy has been kind of my core and foundation. So whatever I offer, it's always there. Um,
Right.
that's how I've been using more yoga therapy and seeing private clients.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what everybody will do, and what we encourage is that the beauty of something when it's holistic, like the yoga therapy, as you're mentioning, the
Mm-hmm.
foundation, it covers all different areas. So a person can use their like skill set from before. Yeah, I was just had a nice conversation with somebody who was a very high level in the corporate world. So she now uses her yoga therapy, but she would call herself a what do you call that? Like a life coach to executive coach. All
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yeah.
But then she uses a ton of the yoga therapy in the executive coaching,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be exclusive.
Right.
Psychotherapists use yoga therapy, physical therapists, all these different people can bring it in. So that's great that's you. So um do maybe how about any client, like, so somebody comes in, like, why would they come to see you for yoga therapy? What's an average kind of reason for somebody coming to
Mm.
you?
It's usually when people are going through some transition, whether it's
Uh-huh.
retiring or they're switching jobs or they're taking like a sabbatical, taking
Uh-huh.
a break, relationship,
Mm-hmm.
ending or starting,
Uh-huh.
um, and moving into into a different age where, they're starting to see that they need some practices to help with their changing body. Um, and a lot of times, they don't really know until they're just like, I'm going through some changes. I knew yoga has been really helpful, or somebody told them yoga has been really helpful, and they're looking for a private session. There's just
Mm.
a private yoga. And then as I explained to them what yoga therapy is, it actually sometimes will naturally go from private yoga to like a yoga therapy session, because cannot not touch on the other parts of, you know, of someone's
Sure.
life, right? So
Sure.
yeah, in general, it's folks coming in when they're having some changes in their life.
Nice.
Or they're
Nice.
curious. Actually, more and more are just coming like, oh, I don't know what yoga therapy is, so I thought I'd try it.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. So how do you see now where you're headed in the future?
I still see myself doing, this kind of work where I'm seeing private client, seeing that doing one-on-one sessions, um, and hopefully taking it to maybe more smaller group settings.
Mm.
So whether it's, I am more drawn to like more women's health.
Mm-hmm.
And most of my clients come to me who are women or identify as,
Uh-huh.
female.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so for me, I think, yeah, what I see myself is continuing to do this work, but also collaborating with others. So not
Mm.
just kind of being siloed as, I'm doing my yoga therapy work now, but maybe collaborating with others in wellness centers, like in
Mm-hmm.
holistic health, such as acupuncturists, or maybe even like, massage therapists.
Nice.
Because I currently
Yeah.
work in one. And so I see
Uh-huh.
how there's a lot of potential for collaboration.
Mm. Yep.
Um, and, we're talking about holistic care and yoga. There's, there's
Yeah.
some things that are out of our scope of work and that would be really beneficial for our clients. And so having that
Absolutely.
network is what I kind of envision myself doing.
Nice. That's wonderful.
Mm.
Well, I think we got a good feeling. Like, you know, it's like, um, I appreciate you for sharing a little bit about your journey, you know, and it is interesting. Your fellow graduates, they all have like they all explain like you explained these koshas, these 5 layers of a human being. Like everybody kind of lands in one area or two, and like that's what they say, and it's like completely integrated, you know. Whereas it's something that we study, but then
Hmm.
years later it just becomes kind of integrated in your thinking and is very helpful. These models are very helpful for remaining holistic and open-minded and so forth. So yeah, thank you
Yeah.
very much for
Well,
sharing it. Is anything else you want to say?
I just want to say thank you, Bob, and to Kristen and all the teachers. Yeah, I just cannot express how grateful I am, and having this opportunity to just reflect and talk to you about my journey
Uh-huh.
just brings back, you know,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
yeah, memories of that
Yeah.
and like how
Totally.
more gratitude.
Yes,
So,
I hear you.
yeah,
And
thank you for the opportunity.
it's wonderful to hear all your progress too. So thanks
Mhm.
again, Christine. And
Thanks, Bob.
we'll wrap up another edition of Where Am I Now?